Hello everyone, this is Macro-lucious and welcome back to Rust, and we're taking a very brief intermission from our fake banking program, and we'll be talking about Rust macros. So they're more of a high level and advanced feature. They're basically like functions, except when they compile, they don't take a call to a different section of the code. They actually replace the macro call with your macro code. So you'll notice that we have a simple program. There's a function named hi that takes in a string reference and just prints the string. So if we run it, it's exactly what we'd expect and prints hi. Simple, but you'll notice there's a little exclamation point after print line. That's a macro, as previously mentioned in episode 1 of my Rust fake banking program intro series, link in the description. So what if we want to make this a macro? Well, fortunately, it's pretty simple. We'll start at the top of a file. I think this is just a convention. You don't actually need to do this. And type macro rules, and that's a macro. We'll name a macro, so hi, brackets, to define the macro body. Then, obviously, we'll do something you won't see very often. So we'll be doing this, then our macro code. So just same thing as our function code. It's nothing different. And now our name. So I'm just going to do A. So now you'll notice, how do we pass params? And what's this $sign mean? Well, in the parentheses is where you pass params. So we'll go ahead and do $A colon expo. This is short for expression. So what's this mean? Obviously, you're not going to strong type a type. So for a macro, you would type some of the more basic types that you can use are expression, ty, block, literal, or ident. We'll talk about those in a moment. So that's what this means. So it will take the first parameter, which will be an expression, and an expression just means it's just a generic expression, so it can be a literal value or a variable. And then it will replace it every $A with this. Very simple. So if I go ahead and make my I an exclamation point to make it a macro, there we go. If we run, you'll notice nothing special happens. Now let's try again, but this time we'll do block. So block is interesting. So block, we'll do brackets to make a block, and then we'll do 1 plus 1. That's it. So if we run, we'll get a 2. So what this is saying is, I'm going to run what's inside the brackets, and then the return value, which as you remember in a block, the last line, if it doesn't have a semicolon, is just return. It's going to get the value and run and replace its return value with this $A. So this function can also have side effects. So for example, if you wanted to do a bunch of print line and then grab like a status, you could do that. That's pretty simple. So we'll also check out the literal type. This is what we started with, literally just a string. I'm also quickly going to declare a variable. So you'll notice if I pass in the variable A, it doesn't work. But if I pass in the string A, it works just fine. So now we know, but what if we want to pass in variables? We can use ident, and if we pass in the variable, works just fine. So now we've covered expression, block, literals, and identifiers. That's what ident is short for. Let's talk about types. So if you do ty, that references a type. So we could make this $B and add an expression, and then commas for params. So then we'll do as $T B. And this is actually pseudocode, or it's actually not. So you'll see we just have to add another type. So this will be I32. And we'll just make this like that. And if we run, we get an error. And that would be because I forgot to go through. Okay, so we're gonna have to input a 3, and then it should run. Yes. So we could do F32 to make it a float. And you can kind of see how this type system works. Obviously, you're not gonna just do this with a print line statement. What you're really gonna be doing this for is whole giant things of code that shouldn't be used to function, they need to be replaced. So for example, blocks and types can't be passed into functions generally, so macro. Or maybe you can only accept variables, macro. Maybe can't accept variables, macro. So that's another feature. But an amazing feature of macros is the arms function. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to bring in this superprint macro I've already developed. It's very simple. You'll recognize everything. So I put in a few comments. It's a reminder that the block is always evaluated first. So let's just use a few superprints just to show you how powerful macros really are. Okay, there we go. So this is branching, or arms, as I just called them. So you'll notice we have parentheses with parameters. I don't know what this is called, but equals and then greater than sign, brackets, and then a macro code, and this time a semicolon. First time there was no semicolon. So we have just a bunch of these. And these are multiple versions of the same macro. So they can have different types of params, different parameter numbers, all sorts of things. So I'm actually going to declare this undeclared A variable. Okay, so let's quickly go through this. So we have the standard little, print little. So you'll notice that these two are identical. They'll do the same thing, just one can take in littles and one can take in variables. The block here, if we look down here, we'll see let 2 equal 2, 2 times 2 as a return value. And this is just to demonstrate that you can indeed do actual code on this blocks. In a block, it doesn't just have to be one line. Then we have two parameters, an expression and a type, and this just takes in one, casts it, and prints it. So what we should get is all fours. We should get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 fours. So if you run it, 1, 2, 3, 4, that means each of these functions have run as such. Notice how the last one here doesn't really need a semicolon. So, to review, there are three types: expression, EXPR, just a type, TY, block, literal, or an identifier, which is IDENT. You can pass these into a macro and it will be evaluated. Macros are replaced by their body code with their associated parameters. So this macro, this would be replaced with this. This would be replaced with this. This would be replaced with this. And this would be replaced with this. You can declare macro with the macro rules, macro. And macros are super complicated. There's a whole other feature which lets you make like languages in a language. I'll link to that section of the wiki down below. So that is a brief introduction into macros. This is Incredible, signing out.